I'm happy to welcome you to my session. Today I'd like to speak about LPWAN technologies, and I will explain a bit at this really live example why application know-how is so important and dynamic payload can bring you the most value out of your application. Let's dive into the mioty in LoRaWAN, for example, to point out and give you an idea why this is so important for you. In LPWAN networks, the amount of data which can be transmitted is very limited. The other thing is a lot of battery-driven devices works with these LPWAN technologies, which also brings a big limitation to this technology itself. And this you have to really understand that you can bring most out for your application. In the SubGHz band, we have different zones, so it's not only regulated by less of data, it's also some difference, for example, between Europe and other regions. We have approximately 8 regions worldwide. Because of limited energy, because we have a lot of battery-driven devices in this field, and we have a big limitation of regulations in the SubGHz frequency band, brings a lot of disadvantage for this technology, and we have a very limited amount of data we can send to the network or get from the network. Let's point out the example from Europe. So in Europe we have the regulation that we only allowed to do 1% send time during measured over 1 hour. And this brings a big limitation to it itself and means we cannot send a lot of data. Another limitation is you have to think about, do you need a public network operator for your application, or is it important that you can do your own networking? And this brings also an item to select the right technology for your application. Another important thing is the downlink message. So we have a lot of devices, they have programmed different applications in the device itself, and you can activate these by sending downlink messages from the cloud to the device. And this makes very useful for you because you have the same device, you can use it for different applications and they run in that application perfectly and use only the amount of energy needed for the exact application then. Let me explain you some difference between mioty and LoRaWAN, for example. We do have both technology implemented in that device, and customers can choose which technology fits best for their applications. So let's dive in LoRaWAN. I will point out the main bullet points this technology brings in. Because of the spreading technology used by LoRaWAN, we become the range for LoRaWAN, which is very high. And the big advantage is the network itself can choose the spreading factor, so that if we have good coverage, we can reduce the send time to a minimum. So let me take out an example. If we like to transmit 50 bytes, we need in the worst case 2.8 seconds to transmit this data to the network. And that means we have then after that make a break from nearly 280 seconds until we can transmit the next telegram to the network. Then let's dive into the mioty technology. The mioty technology uses data splitting, so it means they split the transmission message into a lot of small packages and transmit it with some redundancy. For example, if we like to transmit 50 bytes over the mioty network, we have always 1 second time on air, but until the message is really sent, the device needs approximately 10 seconds. We can send approximately 37 messages in 1 hour. And this is really a limitation you have to take into account for your application. And so if you have to have faster feedback, the device needs some edge intelligence to only announce if something happened which you like to know. Besides the radio technology, a lot of other things are very important if you make a known device. One is easy installation. Here we can really easily mount it on the in-rail or to the wall, which makes it pretty easy for the installation itself. We can easily open the device, change batteries for example, and can really easy change the device because we can take out the connections, change the housing if we have a damage, stick in again, and here you go again in the field. And that's pretty cool. And I think you have a lot of other things which are important for your application. And for that, let's dive into some other examples we have or we realized to give you an idea what's important for LPWAN devices to build it. So we have an example device I just showed you before. It's called the Cluey family we have, and it's a device from a very high perspective. It has only 8 digital inputs. But what brings the main to this device? What is the challenge in the application for you? So we have telegram losses, we have the limited network capability, and we have the duty cycle limitation we have to take into account. And with that, we really made us a lot of thoughts. We can use that device to control vents, valves, pumps, or even complete doors, because we implemented edge intelligence on the device itself, which makes some pre-calculations, or it makes, for example, if you like to control a door, it stops by the device itself and not waits for a message from the network. So the only message from the network is, please open the door, and the rest is handled by the device itself. When the device is finished, it sends you a message back, so everything is fine, I've opened the door. And that's a really thing you have to think different compared to other IoT applications. As mentioned before, in mobile application, we typically control from the cloud itself because we have a lot of data we can transmit, and we can really short get message to the device, and that you have to think in your application. Another application with the same device is impulse counting. So the device itself counts the impulses, for example from water meters, electrical meters, and we can count how long for example an input is high or an input is low, and send that to you as additional information, since you can't compute that in the cloud. Because if you have a lot of devices in a small area, you must have some telecom losses, and you have to take that into account and to think of that your application still works even if you have missing telegrams in the praxis. Another application is a simple service button. This for me is the typical LPWAN application, which is battery driven and has a really long lifetime. But we made a lot of thoughts into the button, what additional functions we can give it to the customer. And at the end we implemented 3 applications. One is this simple service button, another is temperature and humidity measurement, and another is door counting. And these 3 applications we see a lot in the building, smart building technology. And with this only one device you can have it for all 3 applications. So your customer only needs one device for all such 3 applications. And the idea is, by simply send a downlink message to the network when you activate it, you have to select the right application. The reason for that is we have limitations just mentioned before, here mainly from the battery lifetime driven. So if you have a temperature humidity measurement, the device will last shorter than you have a simple button which makes typical nothing, only if you push the button we have some telegram sends uplink. And you can configure live sign message, so you can send, for example, once a week a message. If nobody would push the button, you get a message, still the device is alive, the battery level is fine, everything is okay. An application we see a lot in the field is GPS tracking. Actually a lot of goods or food or whatever we start to track even with small devices, because we have small devices with good coverage and a long battery lifetime. And why we realized another GPS tracker for a customer of us, because if you use the Google, you find a lot of devices on the market, and you had trouble to find the right for you. And that's exactly the point. You need a device which fits for your application. Means the firmware inside this tracker must be optimized for your application you have in the field. Otherwise you will use a lot of energy for nothing. And another big thing is, especially if you use devices from other manufacturers, you like to produce exactly that devices in terms of service. Maybe after 5 years you are not able to buy the device as it is, or you have a new stack in it and you get trouble with your backend. And here we design a really rough GPS tracker, We use that to track construction machines, and that's the reason why really this device is as big as it is because we spend a lot of batteries inside here, because that's exactly needed for this use case. In the infrastructure monitoring, you see a lot of LPWAN applications. So our Cluey device is used for Mast switch monitor, because by today the workers have to call to the central and tell them which switch they switched on or off. And we have a simple device which detects if the switches are open or closed and improves the security for the network operator. So comtac is a Swiss-based company with over 30 years experience on the market. We have own products we do a lot of custom-specific product variants starting from the own products, and we realize custom-specific electronic development. And with our sister companies, we also can give you the produce of the devices all from one hand. So if we can assist you in designing applications, we would be very happy, because we have a deep knowledge from construction, housing, designing electronics, and we know exactly the technologies. So we can support you to find the right technology for your application. So thank you very much for your attention. We would be very happy if we can support you in your application, because I think you saw we realized a lot of different products and projects in our lifetime, and we can really help you to get the most out of your product or your application. Thank you very much for your attention.